I'm Ron Guanazzo, one of Chicago's most successful treasure hunters.
It's about the potential.
I work the beaches and parks every spare minute I can, finding all kinds of cool and valuable stuff.
Gold, silver, platinum, earrings, chains, coins, medallions, you name it and I've found it.
Over the past 7 years, I've been coming to Britain in search of relics much older than I could ever find in the States.
It's about the history, touching an object and realizing the last person to touch that was walking the earth with Christ.
Now I've been invited to test my skills in one of the most hostile detecting environments I've ever seen, in the mud of the River Thames in London.
First coin on the Thames, right there.
For a few days only, I'm going to be teaming up with a bunch of amateur archaeologists known as the Mudlarks.
You've got so much history around you and you could go away with a real treasure.
George II, 1753.
To make the job even tougher, we've only got a couple hours each day before they're washed away forever by the tide.
I was hoping to find any coin. Find a jet and it is wonderful. Time to catch my flight. I'm off to hunt for a week with the Mudlarks. Do some digging on the Thames. Do some treasure hunting and see if we can find some good stuff.
Not everyone is allowed to search the mud. I've been granted a special permit with a whole bunch of rules attached. There's about 50 licensed mudlarks working the river who have all made historically valuable discoveries. So I'm going to be taught the ropes by two of the most experienced, Andy and Ian.
All right, well, there you go, Ron. Your first steps on the foreshore. What do you think?
Awesome. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and my permit allows me to detect up to 3 inches?
Yeah, you can go up to 3 inches.
And
That's right, and scrape, yeah,
okay.
in this area. Just a few sort of safety tips to start with, really. First of all, obviously, it's quite slippery and muddy, so you've got to kind of be careful. Just obvious things with it. You don't sort of fall over on the slime.
Okay.
Really, just keep an eye on the tide. Just make sure you don't get cut off.
The Mudlarks are the only amateur archaeologists allowed to dig on the Thames River. They've got just a couple hours each low tide to search and retrieve any artifacts they discover buried in the river's mud.
Andy, what's the sign for?
Me permit number. Being as I'm a mudlark, I need to, when I'm on the foreshore, especially if I'm digging, it's for Port of London Authority boats when they go past, at least so they can see who's down on the foreshore. And
They don't have to bug you in.
that's, well, yeah, it stops and saves their time. And
Nice. When I hunt the beaches in Chicago, a lot of the stuff that we find out on the beaches, gold, silver, it's all round, shiny things. Everybody likes round, shiny things, and it's all modern stuff. To get back into the River Thames, where you could find finds 2,000, 3,000 years old, to hold that kind of history in your hand, it's amazing. I was really surprised with the amount of debris and garbage down there. I turned my detector on, and there were just literally signals everywhere. My machine was just going crazy. Every swing, there were 5 or 6 beeps, so I really couldn't even separate anything. It was crazy. It's the worst detecting situation I've ever been in 28 years.
Just like when you work in the beaches, you can't get too close to the other guys because we start detecting each other.
Are you getting any chatter from me or interference at all?
a little bit, but not too much, no.
Okay. I won't get too close. There is so much debris that's been thrown in over the last 2,000 years. Glass, broken nails, things like that. Lots of stuff you can cut yourself on. So all the mudlarks wear gloves. I guess there's a disease that you can get, Weil's disease or Fort Bragg fever, and I think it comes from animal urine or rat urine or something, so it's pretty disgusting down there. Let's go get muddy. I don't know how thick this, yeah.
Welcome to the Mudlarks, Ron. You've really initiated now.
Didn't go over the top. Andy Johansson's a mudlark, and he spends a lot of time on the foreshore. And I guess he's really, really good at reading the foreshore, knowing what areas are really good to dig in, the danger signs, especially mud pools, which I actually walked through one during the thing, and he was like, "Oh, don't go," after I was done.
See these pleasure boats, when they've got to clean their hulls and do a bit of repainting, repairs or whatever, they kind of back themselves up onto this flat area. Of course, the rudder just takes away a load of mud, and then when they pull away again, it fills up with this soft stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, you walk along and then you start getting deeper and deeper.
But But it's this deep, sticky mud that often contains the best artifacts, perfectly preserved historical treasures. Andy showed me this amazing 400-year-old child's coach he found not far from here.
Well, that's a little toy. It's a coach, yeah. You got 2 figures each side, and the coachman in the front there.
Now, is it silver or
No, it's a pewter.
pewter? When it was new, this coach would have come flat-packed, so the child could make the toy himself, just like the model kits I played with when I was a kid. This is an extremely rare artifact, and only a few have ever been discovered. Finding this sort of stuff is what makes the mudlarks keep coming back to the river.
The history is the big thing. There's always the money behind the thing. What is it worth? How rare is it? But for the mudlarks, and for myself as well, it's more about the history. It's about the significance of the find and tying it into a story.
It's amazing that such fragile objects can survive being churned around for centuries in the river mud without being crushed, eroded, or washed away.
So the tides on the foreshore move extremely fast. I was amazed at how fast they move. From the time it hits low tide, you've got like an hour, hour and a half, depending, and there's a limited window of time to actually go down and detect or dig. The current is so fast that if the tide comes up and you're not paying attention, you get cut off from your exit, the river would sweep you away. You'd be gone.
Not all mudlarks use metal detectors. Ray Love, one of the few female mudlarks, uses only her eyes. That's why she's always looking down, scraping trowel at the ready.
Hey, Ray, could I bug you for a minute? Can I get a little lesson on how to do a scrape? I'd rather learn now than at the end when I'm done.
Basically, it's just scraping it towards you, just slowly on the top.
And you're just looking for shapes?
Gradually, yeah, just basically anything. I mean, ideally, if there's pins out, all the better. You know, you're bound to find something somewhere.
Right. I just found 2 pipe stems right here sticking out, so...
Exactly, yeah, but if you scrape it towards you, it literally pulls it out, and hopefully you land up with a coin or a piece of, you know, jewellery or something that's
Even if I did find a coin or some jewelry, I'm not sure I'd even recognize it. At least I'm not the only one not finding stuff.
I mean, the first thing I found was a really nice pin, but that's what I mean. If I'm finding the pins, why are the coins and jewellery and buckles and things like that not there? It's mad. They're there, they're just waiting to be discovered.
The tide just started coming in, and I haven't found anything yet. I'm struggling with all the iron and stuff down here, so hopefully I can find something. We don't have much time left.
I'll make it 9:15. Yeah. So this is as low as it's going to go now. That's the official low tide, 0.8. So this is as low as it's going to go today.
How long do we have till we got to get out?
well, maybe an hour, I suppose.
Okay.
Maybe. So we can put this little marker in. We don't normally do this, but it's just as an idea so you can see.
So I can keep track of where it's at?
Where the tide's coming in, and then you'll know.
All right, the clock is ticking. Let's go.
Yeah, not long now.
Detecting on the Thames is a little bit different. You know, when you're in a field, you have your headphones on, it's very quiet, it's very zen for me. This is a very relaxing time. But on the Thames, there's so many dangers, there's so many things you have to watch. Ian put the red flag out, and it was just another thing for me to watch to make sure that I knew where the tide was, how much time I had left, just a safety issue.
Every mudlark's had a close call, even the most experienced, like veteran Mackie Duff.
It was very dangerous. You had to go across a bridge onto a floating dock. Down the floating dock, which is about a 25 to 30 foot, that's probably 30-foot ladder, down, across the little stream. I just didn't realise. And I've looked round, I thought, I've got at least 40 minutes. Well, I gave it about another 3 minutes, and my bag was actually floating off down the Thames. So I managed to get my detector, run towards the stairs. This now is over the top of my waders and up to my waist. And bearing in mind the current in the Thames is astronomical. So I've had to climb this 30-foot ladder with waders full of water, a detector, a bag, and soaking wet. It would have been another few seconds later, I'd have been gone with it.
It's a very narrow window of opportunity, searching at the low water mark. But that's where all the best stuff should be. Sure enough.
So what you got?
George II award.
A smooth copper penny from before the American Revolution. So worn you can barely see the king's head. But at least we're starting to find stuff.
Oh, you can see his head now.
Yeah, it's the third one so far.
Is it?
Yeah.
This must be a hot spot. 3 meters away and 30 seconds later, I get lucky myself.
First coin on the Thames, right there.
It's another Georgian, isn't it? Oh no, it's modern.
Modern.
10 pence.
A 20-year-old modern coin. But that's the risk you take with mudlarking. Everything gets mixed up in the mud.
Spend it wisely.
No, this one will never be spent.
But it's all mixed up. There's modern, there's 17th century, 18th century stuff. As the silks get washed away, it all kind of mingles in together.
It's 17th century basketball. And a big one at that. They're normally quite a lot smaller than that. It's not actually hit anything. I mean, normally you get one side to be completely crushed as it hits stone or the person. Like, but this one's actually been made and dropped. It's still quite nice find. Could have even been the one that went through my flask.
With the tide coming in quickly, it's time to get off the mud. The best area for finds at the low water mark is now submerged. And there's not much point of searching higher on the beach. It's mostly all modern junk.
Ray, you should go first, I think.
My first day on the mud's not been great for artifacts,
Yeah, 1879.
with only a handful of modern scrap metal and a few battered old finds between us.
A couple of musket balls and a modern 20 pence coin.
I'd like to find a few more coins, maybe something a little older than 1992. I'd like to break maybe into the 1800s, a little earlier. You could go weeks without finding a really good find, but you always get lucky. Somebody always gets lucky. Maybe it'll be me.
With the next low tide after dark tonight, I've got 24 hours to wait before I can get back down to the mud in daylight. Tomorrow, we're heading right into the heart of the City of London, where I've been promised the artifacts should be a lot older. There's still hours to wait before the tide drops low enough that I can get back to the mud and start treasure hunting again. So I'm heading to the Museum of London to find out exactly what the regulations are. I need to know if I can keep whatever I might find. I'm being taken behind the scenes to meet the curator in charge of handling all of the mudlark's finds. So what's the process for finds when they're brought in for recording?
When people find things on the Thames foreshore, they'll have their permit to search on the foreshore, and part of that permit means that you have to bring your finds to the Museum of London for recording. If you think they're 300 years old or older, then if there are any that we are particularly interested in at the museum, maybe because we don't have an example in our collection, we would approach the finder and see if they would consider either donating it or selling it to us. And then if we were happy for the rest of the objects to go back, they would be returned to the finder.
The Museum of London has thousands of artifacts donated by the mudlarks. So many, there's not enough room to display them all.
Muriel is showing me all of these great finds that the mudlarks have made, and she opens this drawer that's absolutely chock full of toys from the 15 and 1600s. And it's just amazing the stuff that's in there. Toy pistols, toy cannons. The mudlarks have really changed the way history has looked at the childhood through the Middle Ages. Some of the finds are crazy. It's just kids playing with toy cannons that actually shot, toy pistols that actually shot things.
Over the last 30 years, the mudlarks have made a really important contribution to the study of London history through the sheer volume and variety of finds that they've discovered from the Thames foreshore.
I just finished an amazing afternoon with Muriel at the Museum of London, and seeing all of the stuff that the mudlarks have dug over the last 30 years and have turned in, I want to go to the foreshore right now. I'm hyped. There's so much stuff out there to be found.
So now I know anything and everything over 300 years old has to be shown to the museum, along with any gold or silver from any period of history. I can sell or donate my finds to a museum, but by law, I can't sell them privately. These are the same rules I work with when I come on my detecting trips elsewhere in England.
I I actually have 7 Celtic gold coins that I've found in the last 6 years. And none of them are extremely valuable, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade or sell any of them, so it's about the history. Touching an object and realizing the last person to touch that was walking the earth with Christ. I started detecting as I lost my high school ring in 1981 on a military base in California, and I went and bought a little $50 metal detector to try and find it. Never found mine, but I found hundreds since.
"24 hours after our last riverbank adventure, Ian and Andy are getting tooled up.
You got your boots then? Always think I forgot, you know that.
And this time, alongside their metal detectors, they're bringing picks and shovels.
There's a lot of erosion there, isn't it? So I think it's going to be a good spot.
After what seems like a long wait, I'm finally back on the mud. New location and new rules.
We're on a different area of foreshore today, so it's going to be different rules here. With your standard permit, this is an eyes-only area, which is still okay because there's lots of erosion, and if you look behind you can kind of see how much the foreshore's eroding. So quite a lot of people just come down, and it's quite easy to find things eyes-only. Safety-wise, pretty much the same as before when you were down. Just be careful of sharp objects. You've got your gloves on, so there's not a lot of chance of getting cut off here with the tide, but obviously you've always got to keep an eye on the tide just to make sure you're not going to get cut off. And we've got an hour and a half to a low tide, so that should be plenty of time to get some goodies.
The mudlarks are allowed to dig, detect, and scrape on the north side of the Thames River. What I have is a guest permit, which allows me to detect up to 3 inches and scrape on the south side of the Thames River. On the north side of the Thames River, it's eyes only. I can't do any digging. I can't use a metal detector. It's merely what I see on the surface.
Ian and Andy aim to get down to the undisturbed layers of the mud where the best preserved artifacts are likely to be found. To do that, they choose to dig, but they've only got an hour, so it's critical they get the positioning right.
So Ian, you and Andy are going to dig a hole today. What's that involve, and how do you figure out where to put that hole?
Well, basically, it's kind of random, but you just got to try and read the foreshore a little bit, just sort of see areas that haven't been disturbed and that just look, that you might have a better chance with. I mean, like this patch here where your boot's on, that looks like it's been disturbed. It's got modern rubble and stuff in it. Whereas this little patch here, I'm just looking at this piece of tile here, just looks like it's sat there. The way it's impacted into the foreshore, it's sort of crumbled in situ there. That kind of looks like it's sat there undisturbed.
Already I can see this area of the riverbank is different to yesterday's. There's less junk metal, and the place is littered with broken clay pipes.
It's a clay pipe bowl, and I'll have to talk to Ian and see how old it is. I would imagine late 16, early 17s from the size.
Ian is amazing at identifying finds, even when they're covered with mud. He's been coming down to the river since he was a kid, and over the years he's seen just about every kind of artifact there is. The other mudlarks often rely on Ian's expertise to tell them what they've found.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, a memorial pipe, that dates to about 1740. You've got the Prince of Wales feathers in the middle.
Yeah, that's good.
All of the garter around the outside. Yeah, quite interesting.
Nice. What I was really surprised about was the amount of pipe stems and pipe bowls that are down there. They're like the cigarette butts of the 15 and 1600s. They're literally everywhere.
That's good. Another 18th.
In the early 1600s, tobacco was an expensive and rare commodity, but it was so fashionable and addictive, everybody smoked. A few flakes of tobacco in tiny pipes. By 1620, 30,000 kilograms of tobacco was imported from Virginia. The price went down, and the pipes got bigger.
Hey guys, 9:46, officially low tide.
Mudlarking is so not like treasure hunting on land. Knowing the tide is coming in puts you under pressure to come up with the goods.
With any treasure hunting, it's the thrill of the hunt. It's the potential of what's out there. It's hard to describe the feeling. I don't know if it's like gambling or drug addiction or whatever, but it really is that kind of high when you find something that you think, God, nobody's touched that in hundreds of years.
something's going on and there's that buzz that maybe, just maybe, something might turn up.
I just don't know what you're going to find on the day. Lead token I've just set up, quite a nice one. Probably about 17th century. I mean, there's so many varieties of these. I mean, they're lovely. It's at least if I've had one of these, I've had something today.
Now we're getting warmer. Pins in the mud. This is a real mudlarking inside tip. Where you find pins, you often find coins.
Yeah, I would imagine this has got to be a great place to scrape. That's why the mudlarks love it down here.
Lightweight pins and coins sometimes get caught up in the river current, swirling around together. Then, when the tide goes out, they get dumped together in the mud.
And I can't tell if they're copper or what metal they're made of.
They could date from any time in the last 700 years. They might seem like insignificant things now, but in the past, pins were everywhere. They quite literally held us together. In the days before zippers, studs, and snaps, just about every piece of ladies' attire was pinned. By the 1860s, both the U.S. and Britain were consuming 20 million pins per day. No wonder the mudlarks find so many of them. My hot tip that pins leads to coins didn't pan out, but I found my own personal gold mine. A rich seam of what looks to me like really ancient stuff.
There's an entire layer in here of the old tile and all kinds of stuff in here, so.
If I want to get them out, I'm going to have to work fast. The tide's coming in quickly. I'm climbing under this dock at the water's edge, and it's jam-packed with artifacts, and I can see something poking out.
So this piece of leather's hanging down, and I see it, and it looks like a shoe, and I'm thinking, God, how could this be a shoe? If it's, I mean, it looks old, several hundred years at least. How could it be that well preserved? And I called Mackie over to come help me try and get this thing out, and I was really excited as he's in there scraping, trying to get the shoe out.
It's definitely a shoe.
Mackie's having to work quickly. The tide's almost around our feet.
Maybe even chip out a little of the stuff behind it, you know, back right in here to get,
Yep.
There you go. And you said it might be as early as 16?
It's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is quite nice.
Well, the fact that it's intact, you find the soles and the,
Yeah.
and the other stuff to have a full, almost full intact shoe.
Certainly Ian over there will be able to tell you. Certainly looks quite old because it's really stuck in the black stuff there.
Yeah.
Oh, Ian, have a look at this,
What have you
mate.
got there then?
It looks
Right.
quite early, but I'm not really a leather man, as you know.
Let's have a look at the bottom. Yeah, it's probably 18th century, I'd say.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I wasn't far out there,
Yeah.
was it?
No.
1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, 1750s probably, that sort of date. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it was hanging down from the
Yeah.
top underneath there. And
So another few days out, it just washed away and got smashed up by the
Yeah.
tide, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? So he was lucky to pull that out,
That's
really.
nice.
nice.
There you go.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Well done, Ron. There you go.
I can't believe that I found a piece of leather that's 300 years old, 400 years old. They're talking about 1750s. A great find, and thank God we got it out, because Ian said it could be gone tomorrow.
We can't leave the job unfinished, so Mackie and I go back in to see if we can remove the heel.
Trouble. There you go. All right, that whole clump is ready to come down. A little more pry. There you go.
Gotcha. It's going to be a little bit fragile, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, the leather's all wet, so.
And this is what you call getting down and getting dirty.
It is.
I can't wait to hear what the museum has to say about this.
Oh, that is so nice to actually get the rest of it.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to take this up and put it in a bag up away. So
Yeah, try and keep it moist because
Right.
if it dries out, it'll just crack.
Great. Thanks, Mackie.
You're more than welcome.
Nice. We got the whole shoe out. We got the top of the shoe and the heel. And to pull all of this stuff out, this is my find of the day. I'm excited to find something like this. And I'm hoping that the museum can give me a little bit more insight into how old it is and what it is.
We got it out just in time. The water's almost to the edge of the dock.
Man, it's amazing how fast this comes in.
Oh, yeah. Imagine how the spring tide comes in.
Oh, yeah.
I got trapped by one of them.
Oh, do they come in even faster? Yeah?
Yeah.
Mudlarking's weird. As soon as we're put under the time pressure of the rising tide, we all start finding stuff.
I think it's a George II, 1753, halfpenny. It's quite a nice one, actually. It's come out nice. Lovely coin. It is a nice coin. Some of them come out totally mashed up, but this one has actually come out really nice. It's all there. And it's kept a lovely patina as well. I'm quite pleased to find that. All is not lost today. If you like, they'd make the shoe around it, cut the leather around it.
Over the past 8 years, Ray's found hundreds of old coins, but she's got a reputation for discovering the more gruesome artifacts.
And this little beauty is a syphilis syringe. I actually tried to see if it worked, filled it up with water on the Thames to see if it worked. And afterwards, when I found out from the museum what it was, I mean, I wasn't, I like it, but not that much.
Put it in a bag.
But it's a bit gruesome, isn't it, really? Yeah. But it's still something different, isn't it?
With the girl in every port, disease among sailors was rife. It's been estimated that by the 19th century, more than 10% of all sailors had venereal disease. Potentially fatal if not treated. One of the recommended cures was an intraurethral injection of highly toxic mercury salts. And if you were heading off on a long sea journey with no doctor on board, you had to treat yourself. And if you didn't get the dosage correct, then the cure could surely kill you.
Man, that's a good eye you've got.
You get used to the shapes, as you will find out.
I've noticed that when I was walking along the water's edge as the tide was going out, once you know the shapes you're looking for, you can even spot them in the water.
You kind of latch onto one thing and you find a lot of them.
Yeah, I got
and then you move on to something else and then you tend to find.
Yeah.
With the tide rising quickly, Ian and Andy begin filling in their hole. They don't want anyone falling in at the next low tide. Despite all their hard work, all they have to show for it is an aching back and a few pipe bowls. Nothing to brag about. Maybe I should shut up about my finds.
Well, it's a good thing it wasn't gold coins I decided to start finding, or you guys would have had me in that hole and buried already. If you find a gold coin, you got to buy a round. Any gold at all, you got to buy a round.
You must have been busy then.
Oh, yeah, I've bought a lot of rounds in my time.
I'm getting really frustrated by the low tide limitations. 2 hours is just not enough time. Back home in Chicago, my job at the firehouse allows me all the time I need to go treasure hunting.
It's 24 on, 48 off, so I work every third day. So it's a lot of time away from my family, but the time off is great. Allows me to go out and find some good stuff.
Work done, I hit the beaches. Treasure hunting is just like mudlarking. You have to put in the hours to get the reward. Some days you come home with nothing. Other days, you just get lucky.
Hey, a penny. I don't even think I have a dollar's worth of change. 50, 60, 70, 73 cents and a couple of pull tabs. It's about the potential.
With over 20 million visitors a year, the beaches of Chicago are a happy hunting ground for me, with lost rings, coins, earrings, bracelets, and necklaces. Over the years, I found them all. And some of them come with very surprising stories.
So this is some of the gold and silver that I found in the last 25 years of detecting. In fact, this is the first gold ring that I dug in '85 when I started. They have a gold college ring. I've got some high school rings in here. And these I've all tried to return and just haven't been able to locate the owners. This row is all platinum rings here. Gold, lots of gold. Broken chains, medallions, earrings, silver, bracelets, medallions, you name it and I've found it. Rings, tons of rings. Just about every kind. It's amazing all the stuff that I've got, but this has got to be my favorite find. This is a Celtic gold coin, the piece in the center. This is actually my first Celtic gold coin. So it has a horse on the front, and then the back has 3 moons with wheat shafts on the outside. And then, because this was such an important find to me, I actually had the bezel made for it. So a local jeweler here made the bezel, and this is all melted down gold from the beach, and the diamond is out of a engagement ring that I found at the beach. And in fact, the chain itself is off the beach. And it's kind of a culmination of all of the aspects of treasure hunting that I do, England and the beach. It's a great piece. And my most expensive find is this. And it's a platinum ring. It has 50 diamonds in either side, and I found this at Oak Street Beach, right downtown Chicago. And inside it says Michael B. He's a designer in California. And I try and return stuff whenever I can. So I called the designer's office, and it turned out that this was a ring that he had made for his son for graduating college, who was now getting his master's degree at Loyola, and hadn't told his father that he lost the ring. So for me returning his son's ring, the designer made me an identical ring in my size. It's always good to do the right thing, but sometimes it actually pays to do the right thing. And this is a piece that, you know, I'll pass down to my kids at some point.
I knew right from the beginning I wasn't going to find financially valuable stuff in London like I do in Chicago. But all of the artifacts I've found have a historical value. Just how much, I'm about to find out.
I've spent 2 amazing mornings on the foreshore with the mudlarks. And I've turned all the finds over to the Museum of London. And what have you found? What information do you have?
Right, well, you've got an interesting range of things here. Classic foreshore finds. There's lots of these clay pipes. And the bowls are the things that you can date. It's quite hard to date the stems because they all look pretty similar. Mm-hmm. But the bowls change shape over time.
The shoe, I'm very interested to hear the age of the shoe, and it was quite a little adventure getting it out. So,
it's an interesting shoe. Not sure if it's a man's or a woman's shoe, because it's quite big, which makes you think it's a man's, but it's got a high heel, which makes you think it might be a woman's shoe. But then we think it dates to sort of late 18th, early 19th century, and men did have slightly high-heeled slip-on shoes at that period of time. Or it could be for a lady with large feet. It's quite straight in the design, but it seems to be a left foot shoe. And it's only at the end of the 18th century when shoes start to become left and right specific.
Oh, before that there was no difference?
Well, in Roman times and medieval times, yes, there was a difference.
Okay.
But later on, they start just to make very straight shoes that you could wear on either foot. This is lovely. I love this item. Do you know what this one is?
When I originally found it, I thought it might be the hand of a clock.
It's actually a fan stick.
Okay.
So it's a piece of bone, and you'd have loads of them together, which would support your fan. This one, if you look really closely, you can see that it's gilded.
I did see some design and a little bit of gilding on it.
I think it's got a little flower or something like that on one side. And that dates probably to the late 18th century.
I found this little piece today, and I thought it was a hand off a clock or something, and it turns out that it's a fan stick. It's fun to find the piece, but the history behind it, I mean, it's almost like detective work to try and figure out what the stuff is, what era it's from. They're little glimpses into the past.
And tomorrow, I'm going even deeper into the past, when I finally get to go onto the most historic and famous piece of Thames riverbank, the Tower of London. A place, I'm told, that's packed with finds.
So today's my last day on the Thames. Hi, Ron. Nice to meet you. We're hunting in front of the Tower of London, one of the most historically significant sites in the country. The foreshore.
With over 1,000 years of history, it's seen sieges and beheadings. It's been a barracks and a weapons arsenal, a prison and a palace.
I've heard it's a really rich hunting ground, and the mudlarks are excited, so I'm like ready to go. Hopefully I can make some nice finds today. I haven't done a whole lot up till now. I got a couple of great artifacts, but I'm hoping for a real showstopper.
The Tower of London is one of the most well-known and historic landmarks in the country. It's also the most protected, so it's got very special rules. It's eyes only here. They don't want any buried artifacts lost or destroyed. No scraping, scratching, or digging of any sort. Just what you can see with your eyes. And that goes for all the mudlarks, not just me. But mudlark Tim Miller has had years of practice at just staring at the ground.
Yeah, you see shapes and you pull them up, but it's with the water, everything being wet, it's a little different.
I've got my eyes are like trained for really small things.
Yeah.
And I famously miss all the really big things because you just don't spot them.
Walk by a big chest
unless
full
it's
of
a
coins.
tiny little silver coin, it just passes me by.
Yeah.
Tim has made some extraordinary finds on the tower foreshore using his eyes only.
You find quite a lot of toys on the foreshore, but this one here, I think, has to go down as one of my best. It's actually a toy gun, as you can see, that's what it looks like. But what makes it special is it's the earliest toy gun imaginable, because it dates to about 1580, Elizabeth I.
He does occasionally find things of a much bigger caliber.
When I saw this on the foreshore, it was on the tower foreshore, and it looks like a cannonball. It looks like a big, round, weighty object. But I thought, no, it can't be. Because surely, if that was a cannonball, someone would have picked it up. I mean, you can't miss that, can you? It's not like a tiny little coin. But it was an extra low tide. The river had gone out much further than it would ordinarily go. So I think I just got lucky. It takes you right back to that period of London's history and what was going on, and the Tower of London. It's this fortress, and the cannonball sort of fits with that whole kind of thing. So it just feels like an appropriate thing to have found by the tower.
So Tim, I've only been doing this for about a week. I've been down to the foreshore 4 days. Is there any tips you can give me about where to look?
Because you're not allowed to scrape on the tower foreshore. You just have to use your eyes, which means you've got to look for areas where the scraping's already been done, because the boats go past and they move all the stones. So the kind of shingle areas is no good, because you're not going to, the coins will be underneath that.
Right.
So you've got to find an area where it's eroded slightly, and the flat area, as if the scraping's already happened.
Right.
So you see this black stuff here.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the shingle has been taken off the top of it. That's where you're going to find the coins sticking out of there.
Okay.
In theory.
Great.
This constant erosion is why there's a no tools rule. They don't want to make it any worse by digging. Over the past 10 years, this particular area of foreshore has been eroded down an estimated 1 meter.
So what's the fascination with coming down to the foreshore?
Just look at it. It's just a fantastic place to be. When you live in a big city which is overcrowded and really busy, you can come down here. It feels like you've gone on holiday.
Yeah.
You're doing it right in front of, a World Heritage site. You've got a beautiful landmark here, fresh air, water. I mean, it's fantastic. And, hopefully, some coins.
Hopefully.
But they're almost a bonus now.
We're not going to find any here standing here chatting, so let's get something.
The tower foreshore seems to hold a magnetic attraction over the mudlarks. Heads bowed, their eyes are fixed to the ground.
I can't not come to the tower because it's been so fruitful in the past that it's like a draw. Even though I haven't found anything today or for quite a while, I just can't help keep coming back.
What's your favourite find from down here?
Well, I had my one and only treasure find, which was a hoard of medieval groats.
Really?
Yeah, but unfortunately it was about 5 metres over there. But it's because of that. It was the draw of that has always forced me to come back here, because there's always that chance that it might happen again.
Yeah.
There's always hope. So I've got hope. That's most important.
Always hope. Always hope.
Hope's not going to find me coins. I'm having real trouble spotting anything today. But I can see that the others are finding stuff. With only 20 minutes left before we have to leave, I'm really feeling the pressure. It's the last few minutes for us on the Tower of London foreshore, and Ian's made a really ancient find.
Well, we call them dress hooks or clothing fasteners. And what you've got a hook at each end. So you'd have one side would go in one side of your cloak or your clothing, and the other side just pulls the other side together like that. Still works. Mid-16th century, 1550, 1560. But it's quite a fragile find. It's quite nice to sort of get something like that because it's You know, it'll be easily broken up and lost.
Ray, too, is finding 500-year-old artifacts.
Nice little hammered coin.
I've been waiting to see this.
Quite a nice one.
Ray just found this amazing find. It's a hammered silver penny, and we believe it's from Queen Mary, which makes it a very rare find and probably a little expensive, probably somewhere between 800 and 1,000 pounds. So monetary value is nice. The museum probably won't buy it. It's a, even though it's rare, she'll get to keep it in her collection, which is nice. Always nice to add something to the collection.
Everybody seems to be finding 500-year-old stuff. I just found this piece of broken pottery with writing on it.
Some interesting bits of pottery.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I can tell you what that is. Although that's late, it's only Victorian. That's from the Holloway's ointment pot. And what you get, there's a woman seated there, you can just see her feet there. And this bit here, you can just see rheumatism there, but there's a whole list of things that it's supposed to cure. Gout, syphilis, rheumatism, you name it, this cream was supposed to cure it.
Oh, nice.
So everybody bought that, just as a little cure. So it's kind of interesting, that.
Yeah.
My next find looks like a bunch of old rings.
What are these little, there's a bit of chain there.
rings.
See, it's got tiny little holes there. In the ends of that.
So that's actually a piece of chain
chain
now?
now, yeah, so you loop it together.
Sharp they stay after all those years.
Through there, and then you just drive a little pin through, and that's how they join them up.
Nice.
So you can imagine how laborious it'd be to make that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I particularly liked that I found on the tower foreshore were these little brass rings, which turned out to be parts of chainmail from the 1500s. And my kids are amazing history war buffs, so they're all beside themselves that I found this chain link armor stuff. So fun finds.
And at last, finally I found something really old. But I still haven't found a coin older than 1992. The tide's turning. Time's running out. It's my last few minutes in the mud. But the rising tide seems to be helping.
The wave came up and washed down over here, and I found a brand new penny, and then I went down to pick up the penny and saw this sticking out of the mud. It's a jetton, probably somewhere between the 1700s, 1600s.
Jettons were used as counting discs by early bankers to add up large sums of money, eventually falling out of use when bookkeeping became widespread. Jettons are the ancestors of the modern casino chip.
I was hoping to find any coin. Find a jetton is wonderful. The waves coming in here from the boats, if I hadn't walked by here, you know, within that 2-minute window, they would have been gone and washed back out. So, right time at the right place. Always an important thing in mudlarking.
It's just an accident of time and tide that brought us to the tower today, to mine a rich seam of 500-year-old artifacts. Artifacts that almost certainly would have been washed away and lost forever.
We're about to get wet. We better get out of here. Andy asked me to partake in the ritual of the cake. So I'm hoping this means that I'm actually included in the group and maybe an honorary mudlark.
Look at it, it's all mud on it and everything.
If
you saw that on the floor, you'd step over it.
There is a bit of dirt in the corner, but...
Go on, you better break the first one. Go on,
I'll take
go
it.
for it. Go on.
The Thames mud doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
no, that's
Small people, that's it, good night.
After the ceremony of the cake, I made sure to ask Ian if I was invited back. And they said, under no uncertain terms, yes, I'm more than welcome to come back. So today's my last day on the Thames. I know my permit is good for 3 years. So, I mean, you guys have been amazing the entire time I've been down here. You guys have made me feel very welcome, and I want to thank you. And if I'm welcome to come back, I'd like to come back in March.
Well, you got a permit, eh?
I'm ready to go.
Just email us or phone us, and, you know, we'll meet you down here again.
You guys have all been brilliant. Thank you. Wonderful finds, wonderful finds.
Take your gloves off now.
No, look, she's left them on.
Now that she's done touching the yank.
Straight in the washing up, innit? When you get home.
So I'm all done on the Thames. The museum has all my finds, and they're going to categorize them and record them. Someday, hopefully, I'll get some of them put back in my collection. But the funny thing is, now I know why they say the Thames mud is so dangerous, because it's claimed another victim. I'm hooked. I've already booked my airfare, and I'm coming back the end of the year.